Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala amma ba'd. So brothers and sisters, we're in a bathroom, right? Inshallah. So we're going to go through a practical demonstration of wudu. So I'm going to try and keep the rather than just run through it myself, I'm going to try and keep the practical demonstration in line with the PowerPoint presentation, which I'll figure out basically how to keep that in front of you, inshallah. So that you'll notice me basically looking that way, just to try to keep things sequenced according to the bullet points of the PowerPoint. And I'm going to try and demonstrate wudu to you in two ways. So firstly, I'll do it once on the tap, right, to show you how it's done like this. But I also want to show you how to do it with one of these, because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they would have used some sort of container, right? So that's another method. And this is probably the most economical method, the most efficient way to do it, although most of us will use a tap, okay, which is fine, it's not a problem, okay, inshallah. So let's begin. So let's go step by step. So first of all, before you begin wudu, all right, it goes without saying, and now we essentially think of all of the fara'id and the sunan and the mustahabbat and adab of wudu that we have covered. We're putting it all together into one practical demonstration, right? So I guess therefore the place to begin would be that before you begin, anything that you might have on your hands that might get in the way of water getting to your skin, you have to basically remove that. So that's the first thing. Otherwise your wudu wouldn't be done. And the same would apply, for example, if you had a watch on, you'd probably take the watch off at this point as you walk into the bathroom. I guess that's what everyone does. Rings and things like that, you can be a bit more flexible with. And some people, if you have a waterproof watch that you don't mind ending up with, some water stains on there, then people tend to keep them on and just move them, which is also fine. Okay, but things like paint, Tipex, nail polish, these kind of things must be removed beforehand, because they will actually get in the way of the water getting to your skin. Okay. And then one of the etiquettes of wudu is to try to make wudu somewhere where splash will be minimized. So because it's ideally one should avoid the splashing back of used water onto oneself. And you remember that there were some mustahabbat that there were some things that we discussed that were makruh, such as splashing water, etc. And so one of the reasons stated is that you end up with used water on yourself. So try to make wudu somewhere where basically it won't splash back on you. So practically nowadays that's easy for us because of the fact that we use basins, right? So there's a very little splashback. Okay, so that's straightforward. And then begin by facing the Qibla if you can. Okay, so now if I was like that, right, with kind of my back semi to you, then I would be facing the Qibla, right? There'd be a slight adjustment, and that particular recommendation, that particular etiquette of wudu would be fulfilled. Here I'm trying to demonstrate to you, so I'm not going to be able to do it facing the Qibla, but if you can, right, that is recommended, you try to do that. And then basically you commence your wudu by making an intention, and you can make the intention and start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay? So, and ideally, a lot of people, what they tend to do, as soon as they turn up, they turn the tap on, right? And then they do everything else, and they waste a few seconds of water. I know we all have our bad habits, but try to avoid the urge to do that. So your intention and your Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then you commence, right? So intention doesn't have to be verbal. You're just making intention for purification. That much is sufficient. Okay, you'll see in the slide some wording, and if you want to, I can simply say, I'm making wudu for purification, if that focuses my mind. But ideally, one needs to at least have the presence of mind to realize that they're about to enter into an act of worship, that is ritual in nature, that really we do this purely because Allah commanded it, so we're doing it for the sake of Allah. And also try to be conscious of the fact that one's sins are being forgiven, one's sins are being washed away during wudu and so on. So these are some of the things to be conscious of, which is why mindfulness is something that is actually mentioned by the fuqaha as one of the things that are mustahab in wudu, over and above just the simple kind of just the simple awareness that I'm making wudu for purification, or even if you were to verbalize, I make intention of wudu for the sake of purification. Over and above that, mindfulness is additionally recommended, actually mentioned by the fuqaha. Okay, so Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then we begin. Alright, and the first thing we're going to do is wash our hands, including the wrists. So firstly, we wash our hands up to our wrists 3 times. Okay, so ideally wash each one 3 times. Okay, and I'm going to stop in between. Okay, so that's the first thing that you do. So you wash each one 3 times, right, including the wrist. Yes, and this is sunnah. Okay, and next you're going to rinse your mouth and you're going to use the siwak. All right. So now, you know, there doesn't have to be a particular order to this. All right, but you can rinse your mouth once and then start brushing and then rinse your mouth 2 more times. Or probably the more logical thing to do is to wet your siwak, right? Yeah, and then quickly brush. All right, so start from the right, work your way up, go around. All right, I tend to get a bit obsessive. All right. Rinse it out, put it back, and now we move on to rinsing our mouths, right? So rinse your mouth. So when using the siwak, you end up with bits of the siwak usually in your mouth. So if it's like that, you may have the preference to rinse your mouth out first, and then, you know, like if you want to then gargle, maybe gargle once or something like that. It's going to be difficult to gargle if you've got bits of the siwak, right? So maybe rinse that out first and then rinse and gargle, or just gargle once or twice, right? Ideally gargle all 3 times, right? So if you were to, so that kind of confuses things a little bit, but these adjustments you have to make, these practical adjustments. What you should consciously do to fulfill the sunnah is basically three times. Okay, and then we rinse our nose. So that's when you take the water in, snuff it up your nose a little bit. I prefer to push it up. I find snuffing a bit uncomfortable, so I prefer to just push it up. Okay, and then you can either blow or clean, which I'm not going to do too vigorously on camera, but basically, you know, you would take some water, push it up your nose, and then just blow it out. Push it up your nose, blow it out your nose, and blow it out. Okay, so that's kind of gone up to my eyes as well, which is quite common. It happens to me quite a lot because I prefer the push-up method rather than snuffing up method. All right, but it's up to you how you do it. The idea is the water to get kind of up to the soft part of the bone, so about midway up your nose, where the hard part of the nose begins. The water should go up to there. Okay, so that's done, and then you move on to washing your face 3 times. All right, so remember, the face is from the roots of your hair, where the root of your hair begins, to the bottom of your chin, earlobe to earlobe. All right, you got to wash all of it properly, taking care around certain areas, and then thick beards you simply wash over. All right, you simply take the wet hands, you simply wash over the wet beard, and where the skin is visible you have to wash through to the skin. All right, and normally as you wash 3 times, right, when you wash 3 times, that is sufficiently covered normally. Okay, so here take, you know, water into the palms of both hands. All right, and then without splashing, basically do that. So you go all the way up to the roots of your hair, and then work your way down each time, basically all the way down. Okay, and do it 3 times. Now here you can turn the tap off, all right, try to economize, but if you keep it slow it should be fine. Okay, so keep it nice and slow, trickling, and then basically do it second time. So my beard is thin on the side here, so I tend to rub it in like that, and then the thicker part of my beard, I just do that, right, literally. I don't have to actually get water through to the skin under it. Okay, and the third time, all the way to my earlobes, all the way down. Now here, make sure you take care around your eyes. Okay, so there could be there could be dry kind of eye mucus here, and therefore could obstruct water getting to the skin underneath it. So take some care around the eyes, all right? And the fuqaha have specifically mentioned this is one of the things to be careful about as part of fulfilling the fard of wudu. Okay, inshallah. So that's washing the face. Now, one of the sunnah of wudu after washing the face 3 times, all right, is to do takhleel of the beard, particularly if the beard is thick. So I guess the bottom part of my beard is thick. It's a mustahab or a sunnah according to some of the fuqaha, even within the Hanafi madhab. Some say it's mustahab, some say it's a sunnah. All right, and it should be done if the beard is thick. And the way that's done is you just take some water into the palm of your hand, and you, from underneath your beard, right, you basically run your fingers through it like that. Okay, and that is the takhleel, or the running the fingers through the beard as you read. Okay, so that's a sunnah, and then you move on to washing your arms. Now here, there's a particular method. All right, I want you to pay attention to. So remember, one of the sunnah is to begin from the fingers and then work your way down. And this is based on the fact that the verse of wudu and the ahadith of wudu say washing is to the elbows, or including the elbows, which indicates that the elbow is where it ends. The elbow is the ghaya, or the end point. So therefore it naturally begins from the fingers and you work your way down. And the best way to do this in the most efficient way is to take water in your hands, right, and then basically and then work your way, let the water trickle down your arm, right, when you're washing your right arm, to turn your left arm around like that and run it in that way. Okay, if you do that 3 times, you should be able to get enough water, right, and coverage of all of the skin. All right, in any case, make sure. So what I tend to do is, after I've done that, so after I've done this once and then twice and then 3 times, I then go over to make sure, take some water, then I'll go over to make sure that I've got my elbows, right? So there tends to be dry, wrinkly skin here. Cover that properly, and this is necessary. The fuqaha mentioned this in the mulhaqat of wudu. After the fara'id of wudu, anything necessary to make sure your fara'id are done properly, this is necessary, even if that means going over bits after you've done it 3 times, right? And that's something that people should habitually do, right? You shouldn't take any risks with that, all right? So you shouldn't make assumptions, oh, it's done. So always check these difficult bits, right? Particularly where there's thick, wrinkly skin, dry skin, and things like that, right? So always check your elbow, all right? Make sure you've done it, and then just go over once like that, and then that's it, you're done. And then the same thing with the left hand. So let me try and be fluid with the left hand so that you can see the whole thing. All right, so take the water, let it trickle down, and go down like that. You can go over it a few times, because that's still one wash, all right? Because we took water once there. Take water again, take it down all the way. And remember, when you wash your arms, your hands are included. Okay, all right, and then a 3rd time. There you go. And then here I check my elbow. Right. If it's more convenient for you to start the other way and do it like that, right, under the tap, it's fine, right? But if you want to do it like that, again, start with the tips and then work your way like this. Okay, so that's 1, and then work your way 2nd time, okay, and a 3rd time. The way I did it before is much more efficient in terms of use of water, okay? But again, keep the water, flowing slow. Yeah, so that's basically your arms washed. And then additionally, it's sunnah to do this, right? And make sure that water has got between your fingers. Right? This is more necessary for some people than others, but it's sunnah when you know that when you washed it, the water had got in between, but it's like it's a kind of fail safe. It's double checking it. So go over, run the left hand in between the fingers of the right, and then the right hand in between the fingers of the left. It's not a sunnah if you've got really bad cracked skin or something like that, and it's difficult to reach, and it doesn't get there the first time round when you wash it, from the 3 washes. In that situation, it's not sunnah for you to do it, it's obligatory for you to do it, right? Because the water isn't getting to all of the surface. So in that situation, it's the takhleel, or running the fingers in between, is a necessity to the completion of the fard. Okay, it's sunnah when water has reached it as an added thing, all right? But otherwise, it's part of the fard. All right, if it's a difficult, mine, it's not difficult to reach. It's not cracked or anything like that, right? I don't do manual labor. But for some people, it's really important to make sure that they do this, not even as a sunnah, right? You'll get the reward for fulfilling the sunnah, but you must do it because of the fact that you have skin like that, all right? The same thing is true of thick knuckles, particularly wrinkly knuckles and things like that. Be extra careful. So basically go over these bits. Alright, inshallah. So this is the thing about, so there's the theory of this is fard, this is sunnah, etc. And then there's some practical aspects of completing the fard, making sure that the hard to reach areas have been reached. Okay, so that's the takhleel of the fingers. Okay, next is the masah. Now, wiping over the head. Now, when you wipe over your head, all right, you don't have water in your hands, right? It's just wet hands. You wet both hands, okay, and then you kind of split your hands, right, between these 3 fingers. So your middle finger, your ring finger, and your little finger, all right, and you hold your thumb and index finger away, okay, and then basically you run these 3 fingers over from the front of your head, and you go all the way back, covering the top of your head, right? And then you bring your palm back, covering the side of your head all the way to the top, right? And this technique is really effective. Why? Because, I mean, obviously the fard is fulfilled because in Hanafi madhab, just a quarter is the fard. But the other thing you do like that is, without doubling, right, you end up covering with kind of unused water. So the 3 fingers run over once, that part is unused, and then basically when you bring the palm back, it's that part that the palms still have fresh water on them. It's not been used the first time you went over. So you go back, and then you go from the front to back, and then back to front with the palms. Okay, so let's do that again. So I shouldn't need to get water again, but anyway, so wet hands, right, split it in that way, take the 3 fingers back in that way, and then bring the palms back, okay, and then without taking fresh water, inside of the ear is wiped with the index finger, yeah, and then the outside of the ear is wiped with the inside of the thumb, okay, and ideally rinse that off. Okay, inshallah. So that's the masah. Okay, wiping over the neck, as I mentioned to you guys, it's mentioned as mustahab by some of the fuqaha. There's debate about it. It is based on very weak ahadith, and I would hesitate to agree that is a mustahab or a sunnah of wudu. All right, if a person did it because that's how they were taught, based on the ikhtilaf and based on the fact that some of the fuqaha have agreed that it is mustahab at least, then I guess inshallah, a person can do it, but I don't find that the evidence for it is sufficient, right? And this is the mashur raqaba, as they say, the wiping of the back of the neck, the nape of the neck, like that. Okay, but I don't do it because for me the evidence is not strong enough, and that's the wiping of the head done. Okay. And finally, we're going to wash our feet. I'm quite flexible, so I prefer to lift my feet onto the sink, right? Other people, they can do it, in the bathtub or something like that. But it's up to you. So when you wash your feet, let the water pour. you begin with your toes. Okay, you begin with your toes, and then you work your way down. And you really have to work your feet. Okay, top, bottom. Water is too hot. All right, top, bottom, and you go work your way back all the way to the back. These areas are important. Okay, and I would say I've just washed it once. Okay, now for some people that still requires more attention. I don't have cracked heels, right, or not badly cracked heels anyway, but some people would need to give their heels a good rub to make sure the water gets into all of the cracks. Okay, as well as underneath, paying extra attention to the arch, to this Achilles area. So here, this part is often missed by people. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ warned about the heels. So I would say, and that's just once, right? Second time, you'd be doing the same thing, right? Understand? And that would be a second time, and then it would be a third time. Now here, I've obviously broken it up. Okay, I've broken it up. You can do that as one motion, right? Keep the tap running slow, and you can do that, So there you go. Once properly. I can't emphasize how important it is to do this rigorously. Rub rigorously. Remember, it's including the ankles. When we washed our arms, it was including the elbows and so on. So including the elbows, paying extra attention to the thing. And you can basically, with the tap running, you can go over it 3 times, right? But if you were to mimic the actions of pouring, then 3 times would be 3 different pours, or clearly there'd be a difference, in each time, doing it each time. There'd be 3 different instances of pouring the water and washing it. Okay, so it would be better to mimic that with the tap as well. Okay, but if you were to just keep the tap running slow, then that would be fine as well. I don't think that would be wastage if the tap was running slow. Okay, inshallah. Now, so that's the fard of it. Then as an additional sunnah, it's recommended to basically run the little finger in between each toe. Okay? Now, the fuqaha say that takhleel of the fingers should be done after it's been washed 3 times. But it is fine, and it may be even be easier and more convenient and more fluid to do it while you're washing. Okay? So, but just make sure that that's included. Again, takhleel is sunnah, and one should do it. One doesn't have to. Wudhu is done, but that is assuming that water. My leg's starting to hurt now. But that is assuming that water has reached between the toes. If water hasn't reached between the toes, like I mentioned about fingers, if water hasn't reached between the toes, then it becomes part of the fard. You have to do it. Okay, so. Once again, if I was to do it in one motion with the takhleel, I would, you only have to do the takhleel once, by the way, running the little finger in between your toes, you only need to do it once. So you could do it as you wash. Okay, so there you go. I've got enough water now, just making sure I've covered everything once, and then again, making sure water gets everywhere. Finish it off. Turn the tap off, finish it off. 3rd time. Turn the tap off. And finish it off. And then run the little finger in between the toes to make sure and fulfill that sunnah. And that's that done. Okay? So you've got 2 methods. One is better than the other. One is break it up 3 times or just have the tap running slow, all right, and just go over the whole of the foot 3 times with the water running. The fuqaha have mentioned both. This is not just me making it up. The fuqaha have spoken about washing in running water and just going over it to fulfill the requirement of the 3 washes. Okay, so both are fine. Right, left foot again. I'll try it without the commentary. Okay, so. I am actually this vigorous normally, by the way. I'm not just doing it for the camera. I just do it faster. Teaching this vigorous rubbing to my children has been difficult. They just think you just run your hands over it and that's it. And then finally run your fingers through your toes and then you're done. Okay. So that's the whole of the wudu, right? And then at the end it's recommended to say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu Allahumma ij'alni min at-tawwabin waj'alni min al-mutatahhirin, as narrated in Sahih Muslim and in Tirmidhi with the second part, Allahumma ij'alni min at-tawwabin waj'alni min al-mutatahhirin. Okay, so that's just the testimony, the shahadatain, the two shahadas. And Allahumma ij'alni min at-tawwabin waj'alni min al-mutatahhirin, Allah make me from among those who repent, oft repent, and make me from the pure ones. Alright, that's the meaning of the dua. And then if you've made wudu out of a container, it's recommended to drink a little bit out of the leftover. It's assumed that when the Prophet ﷺ made wudu, because he used such little water, only a tiny amount would be left. So take a little drink if you're using some sort of a container like a mug or something like that. Alright, and then finally it's recommended to perform 2 rakats after you've done your wudu, to perform 2 rakats tahiyyatul wudu. So that's your wudu under the tap. Okay, jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.